It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the Inland Empire. We are joined by Mike Gardner. Mike, of course, is a councilman in the city of Riverside, but he is also on the California Seismic Safety Commission. And I'd like to speak with you, sir, at first about earthquakes. We heard news recently that the San Andreas may be shaking a bit, so that causes a little fear and angst. What are you hearing on that front?
Well, the most recent significant movement in Southern California was on the San Jacinto Fault, which is kind of a splinter of the San Andreas, and there's real thought that a big movement on one can trigger a movement on the other, so you hit a broader area with much more intense shaking.
Where is the San Jacinto Fault?
The San Jacinto Fault is on the west side of the Salton Sea, and then comes up basically parallel to the bigger fault and joins, the San Andreas, and joins about San Bernardino.
Okay, so we're basically right in the midst of it.
Yeah. It's actually physically closer to us here in Riverside than the San Andreas is. Not that it makes a great deal of difference being this close.
So along those lines, what we know is that California has worked mightily to ensure, especially in the wake of San Francisco, in the wake of Sylmar, in the wake of so many earthquakes that we have suffered, that there's a minimal loss of life when we do have a shaker.
Yes.
But there's a downside to some of the approaches we have taken. Why don't you explain that to us, sir?
Building standards in particular, the building standards for most buildings, all but schools and essential services like hospitals and police and fire stations, are built to a code that is designed to protect life, but not necessarily make the building usable after an earthquake. So it won't collapse and kill people, but you may have breaks in the steel or floor plates may loosen from the attachments to the point that either it will take a very long time to rebuild the building and make it habitable again, useful again, or it may be less expensive just to knock it down and start over.
One would think that if you are working to maintain life, to sustain life during an earthquake, that would by definition keep the building sustainable.
It doesn't, and there's an extra cost. There is much more reinforcing material, spaced more frequently. There are joints or plates that the building is isolated from the ground with in the more protected facilities. All those are a cost, and the state has decided that that's a reasonable cost for everyone to bear for schools and critical facilities.
But not for residents.
At this point, not for residences, not for office buildings, not for this studio.
And what I wonder then is, as we know, earthquake insurance is very expensive.
It is.
And a lot of folks forego earthquake insurance because of its cost. So given that, I don't know that we know what you just described.
I don't think the general public knows, and I don't think a lot of builders pay very much attention to it. One of the things that I would like to see the commission do is undertake a public education effort so that more people know, and when you're building a new facility, whether it's a house or an office building, you can make an educated decision. Do I want to spend the extra dollars to build this building so I can move back into it right after the earthquake? I pick up the stuff that fell over, but my building is good. Or do I want to save the capital up front, and recognizing that if we have a major earthquake during the life of the building, that may mean the end of the life of the building?
But do you know how much more will be added to the cost of the project percentage-wise?
It really varies on the type of building. The higher it is, the more expensive it is.
But is it doubling the cost? Is it 10% increase?
It's between 10 and 30 typically, I think. Riverside's newest fire station is a 3-story building, and it was all built to the newest, highest standards, and it cost about 30% more than conventional construction would have.
I'm wondering, if we make those informed decisions, can we then see a concomitant reduction in earthquake insurance rates?
I would hazard a guess that if you if you can document that your building is built to a higher standard, that your earthquake insurance rate would be significantly lower.
Right. Because so many of us are foregoing earthquake insurance, hoping that FEMA will be there in case we need assistance.
I think a better building will be kind of like a good driver discount on auto
So
auto
where
insurance.
do you go with this? Because I do think it's important that we understand what we are getting ourselves into.
I really think my hope is the commission will take this up. I think we will, and begin an education program. It will be through the press, through social media. I, at least at this point, would not advocate that we tighten the building standards and require that level, because it's very expensive.
Right, that's fine, but at least you can create a category where these are the standards if you want to meet the higher standard.
Yes.
And maybe you get a certificate for that, and therefore we can work with the California Earthquake Authority, which issues earthquake policies.
Exactly.
I don't know. Am I off base?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think the earthquake insurance cost goes down. I think the lease value of your building is higher. I think there are a lot of companies and small organizations that would be happy to spend a little more on their rent, knowing that their office will still be there after a big earthquake.
I want to talk about the drought. We are in Riverside today. It is hot. It has been hot for 4 or 5 years. El Nino was not what we expected. We really didn't see the type of rainfall we had hoped for. Northern California got most of it. We are one great big state. But how are residents in the city of Riverside, the county, the Inland Empire doing in the wake of this dud of an El Nino?
It really is a mix for those areas that rely on water imported from Northern California. Their situation is dramatically improved by the greater rainfall up north. So the reservoirs are full in the north part of the state. That's where some of Southern California's water comes from. In Riverside's case and other areas that depend on local groundwater, the lack of rain was not a help at all, but particularly in Riverside's case, we have rights to pump a significant amount of water every year from a groundwater basin that is in good shape. It's very large. It's
in San Bernardino, ironically.
It's largely in San Bernardino. There's another basin in the north part of Riverside. But yes, in the city of San Bernardino, the largest landowner is the city of Riverside's water utility.
It's very, very it's shocking when you hear that, but that's a whole issue with water rights from 100 years ago. But groundwater needs recharge, and
it does.
One gets recharge from rain, and we haven't had rain.
We've not had a lot of rain. We did get some snowfall, which is actually better than rain.
In
the local mountains, San Bernardino mountains. They had a longer ski season this year than they have had in some time.
Comparatively.
But that is where most of the recharge comes from. The best part of the recharge is from the snow melt, as in the Sierras.
I know that Riverside was frustrated with the mandatory restrictions the governor had imposed because Riverside was not getting the benefit of an exclusion. And that exclusion was if you were able to obtain all of your water from surface storage, you weren't subjected to the restrictions. Riverside got it from groundwater, so they were subject to the restrictions. Where is Riverside today since the restrictions have been eased?
We actually sued the state over that, but
it's moot?
it is moot now. After the wetter season in the northern part of the state and the replenishment of the water there, the state has lifted many of the restrictions. Some things are still in place and probably will be permanent. But we get to set our own conservation goals now.
His name is Mike Gardner. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance. I'm glad to be with you in the Inland Empire on Charter Local Edition.